All right, triple split definition, here we go. I have what's called a triple split definition, which essentially means my internal processing isn't contained within one continuous system. It operates in separate parts that don't always communicate instantly with each other. Now, for a long time, I didn't have language for that. I just knew that my experience of thinking, feeling, and arriving at conclusions didn't match the expectation of being able to process something cleanly and immediately. Initially, it was frustrating. I would have moments where I could clearly think through something but not feel settled about it, or I would feel something strongly but not yet be able to articulate it. At times, I would even express something out loud and only later realize what I actually meant. Now, from the outside, it could look quite inconsistent. And from the inside, it felt chaotic, like I was trying to herd panicked cats that all wanted to run in different directions. Over time, though, I began to recognize that this wasn't dysfunction. It was a structure. Once I stopped trying to force all the parts of my processing to move at the same speed, I started to see that each part had a role. More importantly, I learned how to allow them to harmonize rather than compete. Instead of trying to override one part with another, I began to let the process unfold in a sequence. And when I do that, what once felt scattered actually becomes highly reliable. The clarity I arrive at isn't immediate, but it's grounded, integrated, and something I can stand behind. Now, from there, I've come to understand my processing as a 3-stage sequence. Here it is. My internal processing doesn't happen as a single linear event. Instead, it unfolds in 3 distinct stages, each with a different function. Now, I don't arrive at understanding immediately. I move through the sequence. Now, first, there is a cognitive pattern recognition phase, usually like the head, ajna, and throat are all connected. So when I encounter an experience, my mind begins organizing it conceptually. I generate interpretations, comparisons, and possible meanings. Now, this stage is exploratory because we all know answers don't come from the brain. It's not a conclusion, but rather a mapping process. I may articulate ideas during this phase, but they are provisional and shouldn't be mistaken for my final position. Again, I have sacral authority. Second, there is an instinctive or somatic evaluation. So after the initial cognitive processing, my body seems to assess the experience more intuitively. I got a defined spleen and root and will. This shows up as a felt sense. Signals like tension, ease, trust, or resistance. It's less verbal and more immediate. Think of that splenic response. This stage functions as a kind of internal calibration where possibilities generated in the first stage are either reinforced or rejected based on a deeper nonverbal form of knowing. Now, third is an integration phase that leads to clarity and expression. Now, only after the cognitive and somatic processes align do I arrive at a stable understanding. Again, I've got sacral authority, so I'll get a or Now, at that point, I can express myself clearly and confidently. What I say in this stage reflects something I've fully processed rather than something I'm still working through. Because these stages are distinct, there can be a delay between initial thoughts and final conclusions. I may verbalize ideas early in the process that I later refine or even discard altogether. From the outside, this might appear inconsistent, but internally, it reflects a multi-step integration process rather than indecision. What seems to support my clarity is having space to move through these stages without pressure to finalize prematurely. So when people want, demand answers, or like, what do you think about this? You got to tell me about this now. Like, that disrupts it. So what disrupts it is being required to reach conclusions too quickly, or having my early exploratory thoughts treated as definitive. Because I know sometimes what'll happen is I'll think out loud, or I'll spit out ideas from my my ajna, and people might take me as that's my final answer, when really that's just the beginning process, and I need to work out the kinks. I need to I don't know, it's just the early stages. I have to wait. It's a council. I have a council of 3, and it has to go through all 3 before they make a final judgment. So overall, I would describe my processing style as iterative and integrative, moving from conceptual understanding to embodied evaluation to finally coherent expression. So if you're part of the 11% of the population who's designed like this, take your time. Enjoy the process, and let the answers unfold through natural engagement rather than force. Because for you, understanding isn't something you chase. It's something you arrive at. Peace out.